The Hard Rock Empire is on the air. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence here on the Hard Rock Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. It is the music of April the 10th we'll be talking about on this edition of the Hard Rock Empire. And we've got another good week in music. Definitely some variety in the playlist this week, so definitely worth checking that out when I post that a little bit later on. Of course, we'll be getting into the vault and we'll be talking about a couple of classic 1970s albums on today's edition of The Vault. So definitely a lot to check out if you like throwback music. I think you're going to enjoy both of the bands we're going to talk about coming up a little bit later on in the program. Joining me in the studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say, to be totally honest. A lot of good stuff this week. I didn't get around to nearly as much as I would have liked to. I kind of keyed in on kind of my front runners pretty early. I did find out today, kind of on accident, that Jeff Tate has released his Operation Mindcrime 3. It just kind of appeared on YouTube this morning.
Yeah, obviously we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when we get up to the music releases of this weekend, but I'm very excited to check that out. I'm hopeful that it is a solid release. I expect that it will be. This is supposedly the last Mindcrime until Jeff decides he wants a fourth one for some reason. But yeah, I hope it goes well for him. I know it's been a battle to kind of get to this point, and I think hopefully the release goes well, and then hopefully he'll tour under this new album, and we'll be able to hopefully get a chance to see him perform it live.
Yeah, it's so difficult when you're talking about revisiting concept albums from years ago. Like Operation Mindcrime 2 was fine. I've mentioned it before. To me, Mindcrime 1 was a bunch of really great songs that happened to tell a story. Mindcrime 2 was more, I think, story focused, but also had good songs. It's so easy to be overcritical of concept work because it's not just are the songs good, but is the narrative there? Does it make sense? You're asking a lot after all these years to come back and deliver something. And I think your expectations probably have to be realistic, but, his work with Avantasia, I thought, has been really good. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely, one way or another, whether we pick it or whether we just talk about it, we will talk about it in a few weeks when we get back up to the current date as far as music releases. So look forward to that. And again, like Mike said, I think if you're expecting it to be Mindcrime 1, you're already kind of setting yourself up for disappointment because that may be one of the best albums and maybe one of the best concept albums of all time. As it turns out, like Mike said, it's really more great album that has a concept as opposed to a concept album that is also great. So, however you want to look at it, it's not going to be Mindcrime 1, but if it's great work from Jeff Tate, I think we're all going to be happy for that and happy for him. And
yeah, it's a different cast as far as the musicians go. I think Mindcrime 2 kind of dealt with that as far as not having Chris DeGarmo around with Queensryche at that point in time, and now there's really none of that core there. So, I hope there are still those moments where you kind of feel that guitar tone that I think Mindcrime 1 and even Mindcrime 2 had. Like, there's a certain sound you're expecting, and I hope we get that.
Yeah, looking forward to giving that a listen over the next couple of weeks, and we'll definitely get a chance to check that out and give you our thoughts on Mindcrime 3. And then obviously once we get some tour dates announced for that, we'll pass those along as well. But some interesting music this week. We're going to be getting to the new music in a moment. Do want to remind you to join the Discord. I've pinned it in both the YouTube and Twitch chats, and that's where we'll post any schedule updates or anything new we're doing or anything like that. Definitely join us in the Discord, and we'd love to have you along there. Schedule's going to kind of normalize, although I think you'll start seeing some more stuff from us. Things are going to get a little less busy in the next few weeks, so it's going to allow us to jump into some more projects we were kind of hoping to jump into earlier this year. So stay tuned for that. We'll get more details as we can release them, but some cool stuff coming ahead for the Hard Rock Empire and for the Nerdcast Empire, the overall arching channel, which is where you can find us on Discord to kind of get a preview of what we may have in store coming up. Time to get to the new music for this week. Of course, Mike will pull a playlist from YouTube, and that playlist is being pasted in both of the chats as we speak. That is the best of the music that is released on April the 10th. He goes through takes a look at them, then I go through and take a look at them, and we each go through and basically pick one album to spotlight on the list. And it was an interesting week. I thought there was a lot of really interesting stuff. Like Mike said, I didn't get around to listening to all of it. I don't know if it'll come up if Michael mentioned it. There was one EP on there that was like 32 minutes long, but it was just 3 songs, and the middle track was like 24 minutes of that. What's up, Chris? Thanks for joining us in the chat. Great to have Chris along as always. And like it was solid. I enjoyed it, but like the first track was really felt like their single. Like, okay, this is a single. It's like 5 minutes, and then the next 2 tracks were like, oh, okay, I get it. You're a prog band. I understand now. So like it wasn't bad, but it was definitely interesting. But with that said, before we get to the actual picks, we always go to Mike for any odds and ends and things and this and that kind of show up on the playlist this week. So Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, so a couple things that kind of showed up on my radar as far as larger bands, bigger, more established acts. We had Lord of the Lost with their newest Opus Noir Volume 3. German dark rock band. What I've listened to them in the past has been pretty solid, so I still need to go back and check that out in its entirety. Then also some Bay Area legends, Metal Church releasing Dead to Rights. Kurt Vanderhoof, founder and guitarist, is still around in the band. And last year they actually added David Ellefson on bass in the band, so he's playing with them. What I heard of that is solid too. I didn't get to check out as many things in their entirety as I would have liked. I did listen to the new Witch Ripper, progressive metal band out of Washington. Through the Hourglass is their newest album. That was really cool. As far as re-releases and box sets, the only one that really jumped out at me was Sweet re-releasing their Reincarnation album. They were also an option for my vault this week, but didn't go with them, even though it was the album. Not Reincarnation, but the album that was released in 1974 was the one with Fox on the Run, which is a great song. But I didn't end up going that direction. As far as interesting names, not much of anything this time around. Kind of disappointed.
Yeah, it was kind of empty on that front. But I do want to mention, because I looked it up, Warhog was the one with the release, Ethereal Journey.
I feel like
EP.
we've encountered them before.
We have. They have been on our podcast before. And again, it was good. Like, and that first track, which I believe was the playlist track, I thought was really strong. Like I said, the second track is like 20 some minutes long. So like when you look at it, it's like 3 songs, 32 minutes. It's like, uh-oh.
Like, hey, this is nothing.
But yeah, if you're into kind of, they're a little more on the epic metal side, but there's definitely a prog influence. I encourage you to give that a listen if you got a half hour to go through it. It's some interesting stuff. Not exactly something I can choose as my one pick for the week, but I didn't dislike it. It was definitely a little bit out there, though. So
there was one other one that I need to go back and listen to. Did you check out the Frank Carducci song that was on the playlist?
I did. The song on the playlist was good. I started getting in the album. Like the first track is a organ solo, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
It was good, but I was like, I don't know if I want to jump into the deep end on this one. I want to go back and listen to the whole album. I thought I had marked the playlist track as one I wanted to check out.
Very classic rock / prog. Like it's not trying to be heavy by any means. It felt a little different to me. I hope that I didn't just happen to pick the one like really accessible track, but I guess time will tell on that one.
And the first track is like only 1:07, so it was like an organ solo, but it was just an intro. But I was not ready for that at all. So I kind of jumped out of it and thought, I can come back and visit this a little later if it's something I need to dig into. But I ended up finding something, so it worked out. But again, that's why we encourage you to check out the playlist, dig into some of the albums in there, because again, I think there's some interesting stuff and some different stuff this week. Even though there's not a lot to choose from, I thought there were a lot of at least solid tracks, which is always a good sign. But there can be only 2, as it turns out. 2 that we will pick and 2 that we will talk about on this podcast. And as always, Mike will be getting us started first. A definitely interesting one. Another one that I got a chance to listen to most of it. Really dug this sound and excited to hear Mike talk about it. What do you got for your pick this week?
Yeah, so this one, it was really the intro track and then kind of the first track after that really gripped me, and I was like, okay, I have to keep listening to this and ultimately pick it. We're talking about a band who is both from Sweden and Canada, evidently. It's their second full-length album. They are Voidchaser, and this album is Interstellar 1.
Yeah, listening to, because their the whole album is not on YouTube Music, but there is a YouTube file that the band released that has the whole album.
One file, yeah.
That was another one where you get into it and it's like, oh, okay, this is a little bit different. But it was, what I've heard of it is really strong.
Yeah, for sure. According to their Bandcamp, they have 3 regular members. Chad Bernatchez on vocals and guitars, GC Lord Gauthier on guitar and bass, and Colin McAndrew on drums. The album also featured session keyboards by Matthew Facette, and guest performances by Charlie Griffith, Michael Erickson, Roger Craig Smith, and Edith Cardinal. Also worth mentioning, the album artwork is done by Sam Harwood. I checked out his website. He does artwork for a lot of different artists and things, and really cool stuff. And the album artwork for this album is really cool. I've been kind of in a more of a progressive kick lately, probably partially due to my Vault gimmick, where I just happened upon like some classic prog bands in the early 70s and late 60s. What I read on their Bandcamp is that this album depicts themes of technological overreach, mass corruption, personal struggles within a vast lore-infused space universe. You read that and you're like, all right, let's get in this. I'm sold. Let's hear what you got. The Progressive Subway was pretty critical of the production on this album, which I can see why. The reviewer suggests that this, to a degree, is intentional. I think it does kind of lend to the outer space conceptual feel they're going for. And Progressive Subway compares it to them trying to pull off a Devin Townsend wall of sound effect. But, I'm a sucker for melodic vocals mixed with the death vocals and progressive concept albums. So, would I have rather them employed a different production style? Maybe. I don't know, but it's something I can get past. I did notice it more when I went for a walk today, and I have my new Bluetooth earbuds, which, admittingly I didn't spend a lot of money on because I wasn't sure if I'd even like them. But you can definitely hear more clearly the production on it than, say, on my laptop. Like the sound just, I felt like there might have been something missing in the sound of my earbuds. When you start from the beginning of the album through the grand design and then Welcome to TerraCorp, it's tough to not be excited about this album. Their Bandcamp compares the album stylistically to Devin Townsend's Ziltoid the Omniscient, Dream Theater's Systematic Chaos, filtered through Voidchaser's modern and distinct sound, but also drawing from classic foundational albums like Deep Purple's Machine Head and Black Sabbath's Paranoid. Like, if that doesn't get you excited, then this is the wrong podcast, probably. It's definitely one of the more interesting releases I've encountered this year and worth checking out. Standout tracks include Initiation Day, Anything for Love, Ivory Tower, Renew featuring Michael Erickson, and the track that I picked to listen to, Welcome to TerraCorp.
Check these guys out. This is Voidchaser with Welcome to TerraCorp. This is off of their new album. Let's check out a little bit of that now. Yeah, this was the track, I believe, that was on the playlist because it had the video, or maybe I just came across it in that full-length video. I can't remember. But I definitely saw the video version of this. It had the lyrics, and to me, it reminded me very much of like Starship Troopers type feel to it. Obviously, the outer space part of it is kind of there, combined with I can't remember the name all the time. Is it He Lives? The Roddy Piper movie? They Live. Thank you. Where it's very much like TerraCorp is the mind control.
You put on the glasses and you see all the subliminal.
Yeah, like it
consume.
It felt like kind of a cross between those two movies is kind of the visual I kind of pictured when I heard this track. And to me, that's what really took it over the top from being just another type of kind of run-of-the-mill type song to something that's like, oh, this is actually really good and it's really clever the way they put it together. And like you said, it has a distinct production style. I think it works here. I don't know that it would work for every progressive type band. I think you got to really know what you're doing to do this right, and I feel like they pretty well nailed it. So, yeah, this was really strong stuff.
And They Live, of course, being directed by John Carpenter, legend in the field.
Yeah.
Halloween, The Thing, and Roddy Piper was in it. So
Yeah.
I can go with that. So just the classic horror film. And yeah, something that if you're a prog band, that's something that could really inspire an album.
Yeah, it should.
The put on the glasses and you see all the fake people and all the advertising that actually shows these subliminal dark messages. Good stuff.
Yeah, but this was really good, and again, it's definitely different, I think. But I think once you get into it, I think it'll hook you.
Yeah.
So definitely worth checking those guys out. Really enjoyed this release from them. I have got a pick as well. It has been a while since I went with the Frontiers band. For whatever reason, that even when they've had multiple releases, I feel like I've always kind of gone a different direction. But I really thought this was a strong release this week. So we will go with a Swiss melodic rock band formed in 2019. This is Fighter V with Deja Vu. This is their third full-length album overall, but it is the first under the Frontiers label. So this is a band that Frontiers has discovered and brought in, and when you hear the sound, it fits like a glove. Band members do my best with obviously the Swiss names. Emo Akar on vocals, Lobe Valentin on guitars, Lucien Egloff on drums, and Roman Stalder on bass. This is an album that definitely pays tribute to your hard rock and AOR of the 1980s. The PR piece mentioned that they draw inspiration from bands like Whitesnake, Journey, Survivor, and Bon Jovi. You definitely hear some of that there. Into their kind of anthemic type songs. They've got a great sound. I thought it was really strong all the way around. This could be something that really kind of starts something big for them getting onto Frontiers Records. I do want to point out, and we'll hear it in the track that I'm going to play. Like, I thought everything was good. I thought there were a few times in this album where the guitars just really kind of stepped even a step above everything else, and it gave the whole album a little bit more of an edge than maybe your typical AOR release, where you clearly can tell this guitar guy knows what he's doing and he can shred. And anytime you've got a melodic rock band that can shred, I think that just gives you another layer and puts you ahead of a lot of these everyday AOR bands that we hear each and every week. So I think it can give them a space that'll really allow them to stand out in what is a very crowded landscape. And we're going to listen to a little bit of that guitar work in the standout track that we're going to talk about. But really dug this. I thought this was a really strong release from these guys and excited to see where they go from here. Standout tracks include Raging Heartbeat, Foolish Heart, Deja Vu, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast is Victory. Check these guys out. This is Fighter V with Deja Vu. This is the second track off this album, Victory. So let's listen to a little bit of that now. But I think, as you listen to this album, like I said, they have great melodic vocals, but to me, the lead singer has a little bit of gruff in his voice at times. And again, it's another one of those things that I saw some of the reviews. There were kind of mixed thoughts on that. I really like that because, again, it gives them another thing that lets them stand out from all the other AOR bands out there with the great guitars and occasionally a little bit of gruffness in the voice of the lead singer. I thought it was really outstanding album and really enjoyed it. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when you have a lead singer who has a little meat to the voice there, it almost makes the harmonic parts even more pronounced. Like you kind of appreciate them more when the standalone vocals maybe aren't the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I'm putting together the playlist and I run into a Frontiers band, I kind of realize, like, I've gotten used to, like, what I think might end up being a pick or not. And this definitely checked all the boxes as far as, yeah, all the Frontier stuff is good, but this one might end up making the show.
Yeah, just to me, it stood out a level above some of the other week-to-week stuff we get from them. And Frontier stuff's always really solid. I thought this was beyond that, and so definitely wanted to give these guys a shout So definitely worth checking out Fighter V and their new album out on April the 10th. Before we get to the vault, as always, Twitch makes us run ads at least a couple times an hour. So that means if you are watching on Twitch and you are not subscribed, we're going to take a 90-second break so we can run some ads. If you're on YouTube or if you are subscribed on Twitch, you're going to hear us ramble for about 90 seconds. Obviously, you don't have to subscribe. We would appreciate if you sit through the ads because that does help our channel out. If you would like to subscribe, you can do it with your Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you a thing. You just have to renew it every month. But that is completely free as a benefit with Amazon Prime. So we'll step aside for about 90 seconds and we'll come back with The Vault. A couple of really good albums coming up. You won't miss a thing, so hang tight, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half. As soon as the ads fire, we'll get to that. This was really an interesting week as we kind of look at everything that was out there. It was both of our picks are, Frontiers, typically kind of one thing, but like you said, this band maybe a little bit different. The song and the album you picked, I thought was really interesting. Prog, but you have the harsh vocals, you have kind of a little bit over the top as far as the storyline and what's going on there. And like I said, there's a lot of really other good stuff this week that we didn't get to. And, I think that's good when there's a great variety of stuff out there to listen to.
Yeah, I'm kind of thankful that the list turned out the way it did because I'm really slow to jump into more modern progressive metal. Like, I know there's a lot out there and a lot of it's really popular and influential, but unless it's like thrown right in front of me and there's some sort of interesting, I don't want to say gimmick, but like interesting thematic elements, I'm probably not going to gravitate toward it. And this one pretty much had me hooked from the beginning.
Yeah, it definitely was an easy one to get into and definitely encourage you to check it out. Again, the whole album is on YouTube, but as always, support the band if you can. If it's something you like, pick up the album, get a physical copy if it's available. See the band on tour if they're out there on tour. Whatever you can do to help them out is going to allow them to continue to make this awesome music.
Yeah, I mean, you got tons of merch on their Bandcamp shirts. You got the CD. You got the digital album. Definitely pick it up. I'd say it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And Frontiers obviously will have a bunch of stuff as well for my pick, Fighter V as well, so you can definitely check that out. Welcome back to those who have been sitting through an ad break. We appreciate you doing so. This is the Hard Rock Empire. We just checked out the music of April the 10th. It's time to get into the vault, where Mike and I will each pick a classic album you need to check out. Both of us are running kind of alternating vault gimmicks. Mike is running a couple gimmicks, although one of his gimmicks is just about to run out, and that is the preview of Sonic Temple, as that is coming up. But the other one he's been going through year by year, starting in the late 60s, to basically find an album that is consequential or just maybe something that he missed out on or has never listened to front to back of a band that is worthy of kind of that treatment, if you will. And you believe you're up to 1974 now.
Correct.
And I'm sure you've already looked up what I picked in 1974 because I did not again.
I did not. I can check it really fast.
I can find it while you start your introduction.
But I bet I might already know what it is.
Since you just looked at the albums from 1974, you probably have a good idea of what I might have.
Let's see. Was that the one there? 1970. I'm guessing April 5th, 2024 episode, you selected Gordon Lightfoot's Sundown.
That is correct. That was the one. Certainly a classic album for sure. But
when I saw it on the list for 1974 music, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what he went with.
Yeah, that is indeed it. Really good stuff. Definitely worth checking out. But obviously, there were some other great options there in 1974. And the one you picked is maybe one of the all-time greatest bands ever.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Tell us about the vault.
So I don't know, like when you went through the vault, going through your years, did you try to avoid duplicating bands? Like, did you put any effort into that?
I think I did. I don't think I picked anybody that was a repeat because I will pick Queen in 1975.
Spoiler.
Spoiler. Well, it's on the screen too. So if you're watching the podcast, it's
for the visually impaired. Spoiler.
For those who are not watching on YouTube or Twitch. But I don't believe as you start your stuff, I'll look through. But I don't think I picked any band more than once.
That's something I've had on my mind. So obviously there are bands where you're like, I don't want to play that card right now. I want to hold on to it, and that was kind of the case with this week. And I end up maybe prematurely selecting this band when I kind of had an album in mind that I wanted to pick, but I just looking at what was out there, I was like, man, I can't help it. I really want to pick this album. But anyway, for 1974, a lot of crazy stuff going on. You had the first 2 albums from the Mark III Deep Purple lineup released, as well as the final Genesis album to feature Peter Gabriel, and the first Yes album since the departure of Rick Wakeman. So kind of a lot of moving pieces there. Had some big debuts, several really big self-titled debuts. First album from Kiss. Kiss came out in 1974. I know so little about their discography and what they released when, but their debut album had Strutter, Cold Gin, Deuce on it, so probably a solid album. Kansas released their self-titled debut. A little band from Canada called Rush as well. Bad Company released Bad Company in 1974. And finally, Judas Priest released a not self-titled album, their debut album Rock and Roll, that came out that year as well. As far as big releases, you mentioned Sundown. We had Deep Purple with Burn, which I kind of alluded to, as well as Stormbringer. You had Aerosmith with their second album, Get Your Wings. Blue Oyster Cult, Secret Treaties, which had the song Astronomy on it. UFO with Phenomenon, Uriah Heep, Wonderworld, Jethro Tull, War Child. Kiss releasing their second album, Hotter Than Hell, as well. King Crimson Red. Deep, I already mentioned that one. Sweet, Desolation Boulevard, which I kind of wanted to pick too. I mentioned Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and Yes, Relayer. So those will, not too surprising given the bands that were active at that point in time. A decent slate of quality albums I could have went with, but ended up going with the third album from the British rock legends Queen. We were talking about released November 8th, 1974, Sheer Heart Attack.
So quickly to answer your question, I did repeat a few acts, but nothing... all of them were separated by, I picked the Eagles live, and then I picked the Eagles Hell Freezes Over.
Okay.
All of them were separated by, a significant amount of time where it wasn't, back-to-back releases or something. And I've never heard this Queen album. I really don't know anything about it, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, neither have I, and that's kind of what made me jump the gun and pick them maybe earlier than I had anticipated, is that Queen's one of those bands that they have so many hits, you just feel like you're really familiar with their music. And as I kind of looked at their discography, I thought, I've actually only listened to one of their albums, their real studio albums, in its entirety, and that would be the follow-up from this one, Night at the Opera, which is one of my favorite albums. So why I haven't taken the time to get further into their actual catalog, no idea. They have so many hits, and it's sad because really their career was cut short. When you look at some of the bands I mentioned earlier that had albums in 1974, some of those bands are still out there and kicking. And, Queen's been on the shelf now for over 30 years, obviously. I mean, they had the Queen plus Paul Rogers thing, but they're the kind of band that it's just not the same. It's a different entity now because you don't have Freddie Mercury around. Let's see. Like so many other bands that are refining their sound at this point in time, Wikipedia mentions that this album sees Queen mostly shift away from their progressive rock roots, which I honestly didn't know that they were necessarily progressive. They're eclectic. I don't know if that would be the same as progressive, but any Queen album, the sounds on it are all over the board. They're not just a straight hard rock band, but evidently this was them leaning more toward the hard rock side or glam rock even. It's one of their first albums to contain at least one song written by each member. While, oddly enough, at the same time, Stone Cold Crazy was the first song where all 4 members shared writing credits. So I seem to recall throughout their history, that was a point of contention with the band as far as writing credits and trying to get songs on albums. So I guess that's not too shocking. Crazy thing about Stone Cold Crazy, too, is you can look up. I found on Loudwire, they had a list of essentially 10 songs that were speed metal before even thrash metal existed. And Stone Cold Crazy is one of those songs. It is a heavy song, and not surprising that years later Metallica would cover it. On this album, though, of course, following Stone Cold Crazy, you end up with this really short piano ballad, which is totally 180 in the opposite direction. So not too surprising from Queen. After that, you get into the song Misfire, written by John Deacon, which is really good as well. what drove me to pick the album is because to me, Killer Queen and Stone Cold Crazy are just tremendous songs, and I kind of wanted to know what else was around them on that album, and certainly not disappointing. And even though I probably won't pick them again, Night at the Opera is one of my favorite albums. I want to hear Day at the Races just because title alone, you have to think it's going to follow up Night at the Opera really well. Standout tracks on the album include Brighton Rock, Killer Queen, Flick of the Wrist, Now I'm Here, Stone Cold Crazy. Just a really awesome album. And I don't know, like if you're not familiar with their album work, I don't know how you walk away from hearing an album that's new to you and not think this is one of the greatest rock bands of all time.
Just looking through their Wikipedia page on this article, on this album, the thing that jumps out immediately is the fact that they had to write this album in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because Brian May contracted hepatitis from a contaminated needle that they were getting during vaccinations before they went into Australia. And then he got starting to get back to healthy, and then he got an ulcer.
Yeah.
So, it's like that could have been the end of Queen right then and there before they really released, I think, maybe one of the greatest albums of all time coming up in 1975. But, yeah, Killer Queen is a great song. The thing I love about Queen, and we could go on probably far too long about this, and we probably talked about this, is they just had the ability to write songs that were so different one to the next, and they were all great. And I know we talked about it with Night at the Opera, because that is an album that is, full of songs that are just, 180 turns from another one. You've got rock songs, you've got, whatever, some of Good Company is so different. Yeah. I'm in Love with My Car it follows Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, which sounds like something that was written in about 5 minutes. It's just a little jaunty tune, and it made the album.
When they mentioned, I think 39, Brian May basically wrote it to be almost like a shanty kind of song.
Yeah.
It's so different, but that's what makes them so amazing.
They were one of the few bands that were progressive in a way, because they did so many different things, but mainstream in everything they did, which is just the fact you can balance that is mind-blowing, honestly.
Yeah.
But that's why they were maybe one of the greatest bands of all. They were certainly one of the greatest bands of all time. They could make an argument for being the greatest band of all time. And I don't think you would have anybody that would seriously dispute that. So
worth mentioning too, on this album, they do have the song "Bring Back That Leroy Brown," which is actually a reference to Jim Croce, who died the previous year in a plane crash, who had the hit "Bad Bad Leroy Brown." So that was kind of cool as well. But yeah, there was one or two of the tracks on here they mention where they had to have John Deacon fill in on guitar because Brian May was recovering still, and they were in such a hurry. But I think this was just kind of that, probably the last straw for them, on top of just evidently they didn't really make any money off this album because their production company screwed them over so badly. It led to them getting out, and Night at the Opera had Death on Two Legs, which was kind of them writing about the production company and how much they hated them and how they screwed them over. So yeah, it all worked out, I guess, but still, tremendous album.
Yeah, I need to go back and check that out for sure. I'm familiar with the hits, but I definitely need to go back and see the whole thing. But definitely worth checking out. I am continuing through every other week. Every other week, I'm going through the one-hit wonders year by year and finding the album that they were on and seeing if it's really worth listening to. And then this week is our run through the Journey albums, and we'll quickly show on screen where we are in the Journey albums. This is the tier list coming into this week. The first 3 Journey albums, if you have missed this, if you are just now joining us on the podcast, those are very progressive rock. I think if you're into prog rock, you're going to love them. They're well put together, but it's not something I'm going to probably listen to over and over again. So they've earned that excellent musicianship, but probably limited re-listens. In 1978, things would change. The band finally found their lead singer. Of course, that was Steve Perry. And they released the 1978 album, Infinity. And this is when, it's kind of the opposite of the old Behind the Music, where it's like they nearly lost it all. This, whatever the opposite of that is, that's what this is. This is their moment where now they're going to become filthy rich and mega famous. Going forward. The band at this point was Steve Perry on lead vocals, Greg Rowley on backing and co-vocals, and keyboards, Neil Sean on lead guitar and backing vocals, Ross Valerie on bass guitar and vocals, and Ainsley Dunbar on drums and percussion. As I mentioned last or 2 weeks ago, they briefly brought in Robert Fleischman, who, of course, we mentioned would go on to be the first singer for Vinnie Vincent Invasion. But later, Fleischman kind of had a falling out with management, so they moved on from him and they brought in Steve Perry, and the rest, as they say, is history. If you grew up with Journey as a greatest hits band, this is where you're going to start to recognize the sound you know. The album starts right off with the first notes from Lights, and it's immediately you're just right in the middle of Journey. Really from beginning to end, it's really great, and it goes all the way through Open the Door, which is the last track. Gone are the long tracks of the first 3 albums. There are no 8-minute opuses on here, but there's 2 things that should be notable. The prog isn't completely gone. If you're more of a prog fan, I definitely encourage you to check out Winds of March and Can Do back-to-back on the second side of this album. That was really like if they had gone back and had Steve Perry sing songs in the first 3 albums, I think this is kind of what it would have sounded like. They're shorter songs than those albums had, but they're very much in the progressive vein with Steve Perry's vocals on top. I think it's really excellent. They're sleeper songs on this album. Also, something that I knew growing up that they did, and now that I know they have this progressive background, it kind of makes sense. You feel like it was in their nature to have one song blend into another. We'll see it again as we go forward, but in this particular album, the songs Feeling That Way and Anytime were often played together on the radio, and when you listen to them, you can tell why. They basically go together. On their previous albums, if these songs were on there, they're probably one song that's 7 minutes long. Here, they're 2 3.5-minute tracks that basically are singles, but they really are one progressive song. Lights and Wheel in the Sky are the 2 big hits off of this album. Lights wasn't a hit right away. It only reached number 68 on the Billboard Hot 100, but of course, it grew in popularity over the years. Wheel in the Sky reached number 57 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was the first song for the band to chart in the Hot 100. Overall, the album reached number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was certified 3 times platinum. Reviews were strong mostly. All Music, 4 out of 5. Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal gave it an 8 out of 10. The Rolling Stone album Guide gave it a 2 out of 5. Have to assume maybe their prog guy reviewed that wasn't a big fan of this, but Cashbox said that the single Anytime is a dynamic, irresistible effort that features exuberant multi-tracked harmonies and a potent lead guitar. Record World said that the a cappella open and high harmonies are guaranteed to catch the listener within seconds. The Globe and Mail deemed the album one of the most unjustifiably ignored gems of 1978. In the All Music review, John Frank said that the album effectively cemented their rep as America's most beloved and sometimes hated commercial band, rock and pop bands. The changes the band allowed and the music allowed each band member to play to his strength. Perry's soaring wail of a voice, Sean's scorching fretwork, and Greg Rowley's subtle keyboard arrangements. The reviewers on All Music, who the user reviews, were also very positive. I expected to see some negative reviews on there from maybe the prog people, but there really weren't. They were very positive. This is just a great album. If you want to get into Journey albums, you're not a fan of the prog stuff, this is a great place to jump in. And along those lines, as we update my tier list, it is going to get the next to highest tier. Great hits, but not quite the best. I kind of want to wait and see what some of these albums have to hold before I really put one as the best of the best. But this is just high quality stuff, so I really encourage you to check it out. Standout tracks as we go through include Lights, Feeling That Way, Anytime, Wheel in the Sky, Something to Hide, Winds of March, and Can Do. In 2 weeks, we're going to check out their 1979 effort Evolution as the band continues to move through changes, and they're going to have a change behind the drum kit coming up in 1979 as the band continues to head towards megastardom. So this was great. I've listened to it a couple of times through. Really outstanding stuff from Journey.
I mean, I'm not surprised, just knowing the songs that I am familiar with on this album. I'm a little shocked that Lights was the album opener.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like an opening track to me.
I would agree. It was kind of interesting to me, too, especially at the time. Like, I guess, it was a little less important when you had 2 sides to the album because obviously Wheel in the Sky would have led the B side. And to me, that's the song that really should have led the album was Wheel in the Sky. Little surprised at Lights, maybe because it was a little slower. It was kind of an homage to their prog days, something that was a little more of a ballady type song, or it was just a, hey, we're ripping the Band-Aid off and here's something completely different and hope you enjoy. But I love those songs. Again, great album. The hits are really good, but yeah, a little surprised that Lights was their first choice.
Yeah, I just kind of look into the future here, and by future I mean past. But Departure 1980 opens with Any Way You Want It.
Yeah,
seems like an obvious one.
Yeah,
you got Escape opening with Don't Stop Believin'.
Yeah,
like to me those are like clear, obvious opening tracks.
Yeah.
What do we have? Separate Ways, Worlds Apart opens up Frontiers. So that's
a little weird choice there. I'm not sure what the rationale was behind that.
Raised on Radio opens with Girl Can't Help It.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a great song, too.
Be Good to Yourself would have been a better opener, I think.
That is a great song.
When you look at the hits on that one, you got Girl Can't Help It, Be Good to Yourself, and I'll Be All Right Without You.
Yeah. Yeah, Be Good to Yourself is probably a little more upbeat.
To me, that's...
but
I don't know.
It's fun. Like I said, it's been fun listening to their old stuff, too, the pre... Perry stuff, but this was definitely we're ready to go to town now and make some money.
Sure.
And, these guys are going to do just that.
Everybody needs money.
Next week we're going to go back to the One Hit Wonders, and we are going to be checking out the album from Mott the Hoople next week. So really interested to see what else they have when David Bowie's not writing your hit song and what the rest of that album sounds like. So we'll check that out coming up on next week's edition. But for this week's edition, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Hard Rock Empire. Reminder, we'll be back with you again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. There'll be the music of April the 17th coming up next week, so we hope you will join us then. And we really appreciate you stopping by once again. Another great episode, another great week of music, so we're glad you were here for it. Big thanks to Mike, as always, for his hard work. Big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. Big thanks to Stoveleg Media for their continued support, and a big thanks to you for listening whenever and wherever you are listening to the Hard Rock Empire. But that's going to wrap things up for this week. We'll talk to you again next Sunday night, Eastern Time, 7 o'clock. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Hard Rock Empire.